holy smokes, they offered us a great price.
Yeah, I remember the last
Yeah.
one. It was competitive.
But sadly, they didn't read the
Yeah.
contract documents, and they had to go through all kinds of contortions to meet it, so.
Well, let's do this. I move we award a contract for the fiscal year 2021 sodium hypochlorite mini bulk tote supplies to the lowest responsible bidder.
I'll second that. President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes. Things have a way of coming around, so we'll see.
Okay, another 4-0 vote. And so, similar thing on the next one. This was the 25% increase, right?
No, actually, this is a decrease. This one was like a 6% decrease from last year.
Okay, sorry. That was in the discussion part there.
Can you guys hear me?
Is that Gary?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
I think I'd like to have you amend that last motion. For some reason, I had unmuted, but it didn't unmute. Rather than say the lowest responsible bidder, I think you should amend it to say the name of the company and the amount of the contract.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but it wasn't written down on the motion thing.
I think the reason it was written that way is at the time the agenda was put out,
Right.
we didn't know who the lowest bidder was going to be.
Sorry, should put it in my memo.
Okay.
So Heidi, do you want to read that by any chance?
Why don't-
Fill that in with the amount.
Why don't you give us a read, and we're going to need a revote, right, Gary?
Yeah, it'll be an amendment to the prior motion.
Okay.
Okay. Award contract for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 sodium hypochlorite mini bulk tote supplies to Thatcher. What is their actual name?
Somebody is Nevada.
Thank you. Thatcher Company of Nevada, Inc. In the amount of 36,000. Where is it?
36,017.
36,780. Thanks, Tom.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Again, Director, or President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, you got a chance to do the next one real clean now.
I'm ready. Anybody have any questions on the second one?
Yeah, for some reason this one the price went down, which just rarely happens
Yes.
when we're looking at this stuff. Anybody have any questions or comment on the sodium hypochlorite drum supplies? Okay, Heidi, why don't you give us a read that has the
Okay.
vendor and the amount?
Right. Award contract for fiscal year 2020-21 sodium hypochlorite drum supplies to the lowest responsible bidder, Thatcher Company of Nevada, Inc., in the amount of $20,482.50.
So I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, 4-0. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming to visit.
It's kind of nice to be done.
Okay, next we are going to talk about if we want to to waive late charges again for this next upcoming billing cycle.
Yes, as you recall, due to the local economic impact of COVID-19, 3 months ago, you approved waiving late fees for fourth quarter fiscal year 2020 water and sewer billings. And at that time, you directed staff to advertise that direction that you had given. And although, businesses, of course, are reopening, I guess 2 or 3 weeks now, we assume that it's going to take people a little while to get caught up. And so we thought, district staff thought that you might be interested in approving waiving the late fees for the first quarter fiscal year 2021 billings. And if you are interested, we'd like to receive direction on what kind of outreach, if any, you would like us to perform.
Hi, this is Nick. I'd be curious what the Finance Committee is considering for kind of an overall rescue package as it relates to what we're considering now.
We really haven't met to discuss that as of yet.
Yeah, Nick, there's been more discussion since maybe our last discussion a couple board meetings
I
ago.
think we left it, it's kind of want to see where we're at with this next.
Yeah, the bills are coming due at the end of this month, and I think the week of July 6th, we'll get a look at what our last quarter delinquencies, what they'll look like. And based on that, we're planning to reconvene and how to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem I see with this. The last time we voted to waive the late fees, we were early on in the process, and it didn't really show up in that billing cycle because we were so early in the process, and it was a later vote. Now we still don't know anything because we haven't gone to the next billing cycle. So my instinct is to again waive the late fee for this next billing cycle, just because we don't know, and we'll know a lot more the first week of July or so.
And Paul, what was the?
Yeah, I agree with Randy. Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly.
That's okay. I was just going to ask Paul, like, what was the actual financial impact of that?
The approximate impact is $68,000 per quarter.
Nick, you were talking. I guess who's done it? I wasn't sure. I agree also. Some of the wiser heads have said if there was a way to pinpoint to help people, that we could do better help and not just across the board help, that would be a good thing. And that's something I think the Finance Committee can work on. I see that getting very complicated. The city's tried to do that. They've had a hard time of it, picking winners and losers. So a blanket thing here, which I think is okay, and the reason is those who can and want to pay will. Those who can't perhaps won't. So it's a fair thing to try to do. So I'm in agreement with what you're saying.
We've discussed this last time. The downside, of course, is let's say they don't pay, they still owe us the money, and it's going to be very difficult for them if they have a lot of back, not just us, other late payments they've got to somehow make amends. But our customer service has always been willing to work with people on payment plans and different stuff. So I think we should just go down this road and then just figure out what we're going to do once we get more information.
And then if we're going to do it, we might as well advertise it and get the credit for it, I guess would be the word. And what I found with the public, Shelley, you're the expert in the field, but you have to tell people 2 or 3 times what you're doing before they pick it up. And so, some people really watch, but others, you need to hit maybe different multimedia sources. So that the people we want to reach will hear it, because they're really frantic right now trying to get their businesses open and trying to work and understand how they can make a living off of half the customers that they're supposed to have and those kinds of things. I'm sure you're dealing with it.
I am. Yeah. One thing is that if, I don't know, the percentage of businesses that are going to get these PPP loans, Because one, they changed, before it was 75% payroll, now it's 60% payroll. And of the 40%, one of the things, if you're working to get that forgiveness of the loan, is utilities. That is something you can pay and it counts towards forgiveness of the loan.
Yeah, and those PPP things are coming through in a matter of days.
Right, that's what I've
Yeah.
talked to people, there's some bank in Utah that is just getting them.
Yeah, you apply and basically within the week, the money's transferred, yeah.
Yeah, and then.
That's good to hear. I had experienced that, so that's really good to hear.
And then the fact that they changed it, so you've got a little bit more freedom how to spend those funds other than just payroll, which is hard when you can't get anybody to come back to work. And you don't really need them because.
Yeah, it's really a problem.
Well, basically what the accountants are doing is they're figuring out that number that you can qualify, back figuring, and that's the amount of the loan you apply for. So it will cover your payroll plus the 40% utilities thing, and your accountant works all that out for you, and boom, it goes in.
There, Ted Kennedy, he owns about 8 restaurants up here. I was talking with him about how he was handling getting his employees back to work, because you can't open if you don't have any employees. And he found out that they can come back part-time and they'll still be able to get their income. If they refuse to come back, once you're open, then they lose that. If you file and say this person.
Yeah, but they have to be reported by the.
Yeah, so that makes a real tough situation. But I knew people at first that applied, didn't get enough, but because they'd already gotten a loan, they couldn't get another loan. I'm not really trying to be the downer, but there's I would say maybe at this point we're at 40% of the 25 million small businesses have gotten loans.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is locally. It's kind of like you're in your own little bubble of friends that you talk to. But I heard the same thing that Randy's heard, and especially this place, this bank out of Utah, that a lot of the local CPAs are funneling people to.
Drew Hearing did a lot of those too.
Yeah, Greater Nevada Credit Union was really good too.
Yeah, they weren't quite as fast as.
Yeah, the place in Utah is literally 3 days.
That's incredible.
Okay, Nick, did you have any other input on this? Sleep at the wheel?
Turning you on and off sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Or 6 maybe?
So just to confirm, you'd like me to publicize that we're waiting?
Yeah, I think so, we had that discussion last time, if you publicize it, more people are gonna take advantage of it, which is not a good thing for our revenue stream, but it's kind of like, if we're gonna do it, we need to let it be known.
Shelley, can you remind us what that looked like last time in terms of outreach?
Yeah, so last time we sent out an email to all of our customers whom we have email addresses for, which is about half. We did a press release that we shared with all local media. And then our customer service reps, really, they're the front line, and I think they're the ones that are most effective at helping folks that are struggling, because they were able to, every time they talked to someone who was stressed out about their bill or worried about payments, they were able to offer that service. So I'd say those were the 3 ways we outreach. Am I forgetting anything? Okay.
That seems appropriate.
Okay.
I'd be happy to talk to the Chambers of Commerce in town and the Lodging Association personally as well.
Okay.
All right, let's get a motion in.
I move approval of waiving late fees on the fiscal year 2020-21 first quarter water and sewer bills. And should we say about advertising? And
I don't think that is part of the motion. Shelley will do her job, right?
I'll second that. I seconded it, I said that to you.
And will President Molison,
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
I was wondering if we lost connection. You send them a text, John?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
we're there. Did you hear that motion, Nick?
Yeah, no, I heard it, and I talked earlier. I think something happened internally where they just muted and it doesn't matter. I'm supportive of all this, so I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Why did that not show up?
Well, I heard all the yeses, so that was passed 4-0, so. All right, somebody's going to talk about, Chris, are you out there in the ether, the temporary employee of the IT department?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, Board of Directors, and welcome back, Director Wallace.
Thank you.
The item in front of you today, I'm requesting the renewal of the IT department's temporary employee contracted through Blue Ribbon Temporary Personnel Services. I really respect and appreciate, as a ratepayer myself, the board's decision to review the temporary staffing and ask the staff to run as lean as possible because of the current global situation. This position, however, has been staffed for so many years in the IT department, it's become an integral part of the district's IT operations and enabled the department to continue to operate at a very high level and accomplish district-wide successes by focusing our regular full-time employee resources on high-priority projects and solutions. In response to the budget reduction request, IT, HR, and accounting calculated the financial cost of hiring this position directly versus using Blue Ribbon like we have in the past. While there were some financial savings hiring directly, the position would have fewer usable hours to recognize those people, resulting in pretty much a full day loss per week in this position's regular work, while still paying hours annually when you account for the sick and holiday approval. As you can imagine, the needs of the IT department have drastically increased over the last few months due to COVID. The new utility management software is being brought online in the next couple of weeks, and there has been a massive increase in the number of mobile devices recently. All to show reduction in this position's hours will be felt. I'd also mention that the IT department had a second temporary position in the budget, which we have decided to defer pursuing that hire until next fiscal year due to the budget reduction request. With that said, I'm requesting the board approve the renewal of the Information Technology Department's temporary employee with Blue Ribbon in the amount of $35,000, unless I can answer any further questions.
Anybody have anything on this? Just for myself, Chris, I appreciate you paying attention to the past few board meetings where we trying to really get rid of as many of these temporary positions as we can, just to anticipate a budget crisis that we might encounter if our revenues drop, and our revenues really are dropping because of we postponed our rate increases. So I appreciate that. Did anybody have any comments on this? John?
No, I was just going to say, I know we've been trying to hold off hiring temporary employees, but to Chris's point, IT has become more important than ever. Their workload's increasing more than ever. And then fundamentally, I'd say with the shutdown and into the future, we're going to have to rely on IT more and more and more. So whereas I support reducing temporary positions, I think we have to do this. And then also, I share Randy's sentiment, Chris, with reducing that the second temporary position. So I'm in favor of moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
Okay. If nobody has anything else on this item, I will move we approve the renewal of the Information Technology Department's temporary employee contract with Blue Ribbon in the amount of $35,000 for fiscal year 2020-21.
I'll second that.
And to vote, President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Hey, we understand that. Okay, 4-0. Julie, are you gonna give us this next one?
And
Cathodic protection.
yes, so for everyone's benefit, I'll give you a little bit of background. This past year, we've been working on a flood protection pilot study in our Mount Rainier Zone area over in Burn area, with funding from DORADO County Water Agency. And in phase one, they went out and did a little bit of field investigation in that area. That area is right on the edge of one of our leakier areas of our water system, and so and it's all steel mains over there. So we wanted to kind of get an idea of how effective a cathodic protection system might be in this area that we've done a lot of our pilot work in, and then if it looks like it could be a good solution for extending the life of our assets, then look at rolling it out across the system as a whole. So the first phase, JBH, the consultant, prepared a report for us, considering two different options for how we could do a cathodic protection system. One would be an impressed current system, where they put a rectifier out there and we power the thing up, and much like the gas company does with their larger steel gas transmission mains, we would be putting the current into those steel mains to help protect them. The alternative was a passive anode system, which is much like what we're moving towards in all of our water tanks, where we just put like a sacrificial anode of a certain, metal composition in the ground and connect that with a wire to each of the water services. And then that anode basically draws all the corrosion to that anode at every service line. And that's a much more cost-effective option based on their report. And it has a lot less ongoing operation and maintenance. Because you basically put the anode in and you forget about it for at least 5 years. You go test it periodically to make sure that it's not completely gone. And so you don't have to keep something up and running per se. So the next step in this process of considering cathodic protection would be to go out and actually install this anode system in the Mount Rainier area. And so that's the proposal that we've received. It would be installing anodes at every service over a 2,500 linear foot run of main line. And in the spirit of trying to keep costs down, we asked JBH to give us a proposal of a number of different ways that we could deploy this phase. They could just design the system and sell us the anodes, and then we would install them. Or they could basically do all of it. And after looking at the availability of our crews to really support this project right now, given COVID, the availability of funding from El Dorado County Water Agency for the upcoming year, it includes this project, so we want to get it moving forward. We figured that JBH's proposal to do it all for us is actually going to be the most cost-effective way for us to proceed. And so if you've got any questions.
I did read your report, and can't remember the percentage of steel pipe we have, but it's 90% of our leaks.
Yeah, and it's just shy of half of the, or is it just over half?
So it's obviously
43%.
43%.
How far does an anode, how far does an anode draw the?
Well, we're gonna be putting the anodes on every service. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, it's 54% is steel,
Okay.
and like 93% of our leaks are on the steel line.
And is it from the rust? Is that what's, okay.
Yeah, the corrosion is causing the leaks for the most part.
Okay, so it says here, upon completion of the project, the condition of the pipeline should remain in its current state, right, for further degradation. Now, is that a done deal? Is there, I mean, is this without some kind of monitoring system? How do you know that this is
Yeah, so there will be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but they will also be putting in these cans with a board in them that we can go out and hook up and check the potential through that anode periodically to make sure it's still being effective. So as long as that
Okay,
anode
so
is
as long
effective,
as the current's going, you don't need to actually physically check
You don't
the
have to, like,
pipe
pull it out.
Yeah, you don't have to check the pipe for further degradation.
right,
And there's probably a certain condition of the pipe where it gets below that, this doesn't do any good.
exactly. Exactly, and so that was part of phase one, is they went out and actually, we went down to the pipe in a few locations and looked at the condition of it. And they said, okay, this is in good enough condition that we think it would be effective in this area. And so it made sense to move forward.
Well, I think this is what we've been heading towards a lot. We've got these steel pipes. We know that at some point in our future, they're going to have to be replaced because they leak a lot.
Yeah.
And this is a way to hopefully extend the life of those pipes so that we can replace them on a longer duration capital improvement, which is more affordable to the ratepayers.
And bringing in a priest for Catholic.
You're right. I knew you were going there.
Holy water. Yeah, I think it's a good idea too. It makes sense to do that. And it makes sense just to check the pipes, see what condition they're in. I'm surprised the gas company uses it. Seems like there might be a spark if they use.
Well, we've actually have had problems in the past with the gas companies in press current systems, where we have steel mains that are maybe crossing their steel mains. It can jump basically and sacrifice our pipes, and so yeah, I feel like if we can go with the anode system that's passive, that it's not introducing any sort of current, that's going to be the way to go. Especially, it seems so much more cost effective. We could probably protect so much more of our system with it if it turns out that it's effective.
Well, it makes sense to me.
We're kind of thinking we can get another 20 to 40 years on our pipe life if it works out. So that would be fantastic. We're looking to reduce our consulting projects as much as possible. Of course, this is a water agency project. It's really the only way to get that money coming back to us.
Yeah, so half of the 60 is paid for by.
Actually, I think the way that it'll work out is that we're spending enough of our staff time on asset management projects for the water system that we'll use our staff time as match and get the whole of the consultant costs paid for. So yeah.
So even better.
Exactly.
Okay, you want to give us a good read?
Sure. I'm asking that you approve the proposal from JBH Corrosion Consultants in the amount of $60,100 for engineering services associated with a water main cathodic protection system demonstration pilot study, and authorize the general manager to execute task order number 7 to the master services agreement with JBH Corrosion Consultants.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. President Mogulsing?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Julie. You got a 4-0 on that.
Welcome to spring.
We got a different screen, but that's okay.
Oh, mine doesn't. Yeah, I hit the same as past. It doesn't show. Okay.
Okay, and here we are again, another temporary internship.
Yeah, so I was here a month ago requesting extension of the purchase order for the engineering department's interns through June 30th. That's coming up soon. So that purchase order will be running out. And so in light of the dicey economic situation right now, we thought we would just go through the end of the fiscal year and then return today to ask for extension into the fall for the engineering intern. As I've summarized in the past, this intern position is really critical to the smooth operation of the engineering department, particularly during the heavy workload summer months when we have a lot of work going on in the field. We can really use that extra set of eyes. And an intern is a really cost-effective way for us to go about doing that rather than having to go out and hire outside inspection services from a consultant. So in addition to that, we have a number of ongoing design projects in the office that the interns are helping us move forward, as well as providing critical support to the operations departments in meeting certain regulatory requirements, information requests from the Department of Drinking Water and periodic filings and things like that. So in any case, this request would take us through the end of September for $20,000. We would be continuing one intern after the 1st of July. Currently we have 2. And so that's kind of where we're at.
We're looking at, is it 8 construction projects? Summer?
Right, so we have, yes, we have 8 construction projects not going on totally simultaneously, but we have 2 full-time inspectors and a staff engineer, and then Jason, who is dedicated to the nurse project.
Yeah, so we just don't have the numbers. In the past, we've gone to other departments to get some assistance, and that's just not available this summer. And in the past, you might remember CME out of Sparks, and they've come up to help us as third-party inspectors. Now, that would be at 3 times the cost of this. We haven't seen CME this year or last year, but part of that, those are some pretty substantial numbers. So this is just super cost-effective to make these numbers work in the engineering department with all those projects going on.
And I saw that you approved it, and I know that one of your intents when you were hired was to try to hone down on expenses for unnecessary things. I was one of the ones originally started pushing the intern idea, and the reason why is if you have a bubble of activity, you handle it with a bubble employee versus somebody that you're trying to keep busy the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and that's going to happen every season, and it always has.
Yeah,
We're
so we'll
busy
get a
in the
little
summer.
better, and I understand that the DORADO County Water Agency, that it might be part of the staff charges that we can cover.
The little surveys, piece of that?
Yeah, exactly. One of the assignments that we laid out for this particular intern is to really support Eva on the well owner survey and do a lot of that customer outreach and collect that information. And so, yeah, that whole thing's being funded by DORADO County Water Agency.
Is the well owner survey an absolutely necessary thing?
It's not absolutely necessary. It's best practice as part of our groundwater management plan.
Okay.
And we have, we do have the water agency funding to accomplish those sorts of things right now in place.
Okay. All right.
Nick, I'm going to take it, your silence means you're good with everything.
Well, I think we've kind of talked about this internship. I remember actually making the joke that it seemed $20,000 for an intern seemed like a lot more than I got when I was an intern. But I think Julie, did a really good job of explaining it. And to Dwayne's point, the workload we have has not ceased or slowed as a result of COVID. And if completing this work utilizing internships as a cheaper option is available, we have to do the work. I'm generally supportive of it.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Then I am requesting that the board approve the extension of one engineering intern for a period of approximately 3 months in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. President Vogelsang?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Another 4-0 vote. Next up is payment claim.
I'll move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,249,487.94.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. President Bolsing?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Walls?
Yes.
Okay, thanks again, guys. That's a 4-0 vote. Next up on the list is the standing ad hoc committee reports. I actually have a list of the standing committees and the ad hoc committees, and I believe I gave you guys a copy. Nick, I think you know who's on what. But what I would propose to do on this, Dwayne, if it's all right for you, on these committees, everywhere Jim Jones's name is listed, I'd like to just plug your name in for now. If we want to rejuggle the committees and all that, we can do that at some time. But I think for now, that's a good way to go. So under standing committees, you would be on the operations committee with Nick.
Okay.
Under ad hoc committees, you'll be on the Lakeside committee, Lakeside Park Associates with Kelly. And administrative code, you'll be on there with me. That's one we don't want to use. We don't really have anything going on that one. Under liaisons, we can talk about this in the future. Jones was the Aqua liaison. You might want to consider that. And he was the El Dorado County liaison. Again, that wasn't very active and didn't do too much. And he was the alternate for the El Dorado County Water Agency Fair. So, and I think you would be a good fit for that because you have the most knowledge on that besides Kelly.
Yeah, the old history.
Yeah, given your history, right? So that's all. That's the only thing I have under my report. Does anybody else have anything understanding and ad hoc committee reports?
Well, I got in on the end of the operations committee meeting. For some reason, I was, I'm not technically adept. So but the end of it fascinated me because the operations committee was talking about the last time that they did a staff organization study. I think it was an internal deal. I'm not sure. I think at this point, with the challenges we're facing, it's kind of like a football team at halftime. You go in and say, okay, we got people in the right spots. What are they doing? Who should be here? Who shouldn't? Who should move? I kind of thought that was a good discussion. I was trying to think, should it just be the finance committee or the exec committee, or should it be the whole board that hears it? And it really comes back to what John's job description is, and that's to organize a staff that meets the needs that the board asks them to meet. And so I'm kind of hoping that John would, this is just me now talking, I'm talking to anybody else, other than hearing that discussion, that we take another look at our organization. And then you come back to us with, it's great, needs little change, doesn't need any change, needs a lot of change. And then what your plans are. We'll probably know a little better, but you have I don't know what the board's makeup will be after December. I might not be here again. Who knows, it could be 3 days.
Us three?
Right now, I think you have the support of all of us and the confidence of all of us to really take a good look at what you want and how you want to do it so that the morale stays good, culture stays good, and the work gets done in a good, efficient manner. And we've always done it. It's just every 10 years seems like, oh, that's plenty of time that went by. Now we know what the last organization did. So where do we want to? Where were we? Where are we? Where do we want to go? And you have my confidence to do it. It's really your call, but I think you have support of the board to do it. From what I heard from the operations committee, but I didn't want to speak because I'm the Brown Act, but preclude that, but at the time, once you're appointed, even if you're not sworn in. So I stayed kind of quiet on it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, some good points. I think we're always kind of looking at that, how we're organized and what are we trying to accomplish. I shared you some of the goals I worked out with the board early on this year. We didn't have COVID on those in January exactly, so that changed a few things. But and every time, I think every time we see somebody coming up for retirement, or every time someone leaves and there's a vacancy, I think about organization. I talk to the manager about their department. How do they see their department changing? In the next year to 5 years especially, how do you see your department working with other departments differently, or maybe consolidating departments, or having, when we replace an employee, have someone that's more cross-functional and they can work in multiple departments much more easily. So a lot of that thinking, I would say, is kind of always going on. And, every month we have this management action meeting with, it's called GMAP. So it's me and Shannon and Paul and Liz and Shelley and Melanie. We can maybe talk about organizational structure at our next one, and just see what we're on the table, see where people.
I don't have any recommendations in that line at all. I'm just telling you, you have my confidence to do it. And you've had, 18 months or so to get used to it. It's probably time to take a look at. If it's been 10 years, then
it's worth taking a look.
Organizational wise, from a board perspective, we want to make sure that we have confidence that you have the people you want and the tools you need to do the job. That's something that I feel is a board responsibility, is to give you that authority and direction. So I'm happy that you've already done it. So maybe it's redundant.
Well, I would say that there's not been kind of a formal, discussion on, let's take a look at our organizational structure from top to bottom, and is it set correctly for where we're heading now? I think that has not been formally done in probably 14 years.
I don't want to consult. You're the consultant.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But you have my, all I'm saying is based on what I heard from the operations committee, which was I thought, very good discussion that they had. I thought, yeah, okay. John has the supporting needs from 2 others, and me too. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you. We'll take a look.
All right. Okay, do we have any board member reports? Yeah. That's what we don't.
Hi, this is Nick. I just see a lot of staff members listening, so I wanted to let everyone know the South Lake Tahoe Climate Action Plan survey is out for review and comment. So obviously the board members or staff members, if you're interested, take a look, complete the survey, and let your feedback be known.
Okay. Actually, I do have something to add. We had an ECC meeting yesterday morning. How many people participated in that?
It's in the 40s.
Was it in the 40s?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was good. For my point of view on the board member report, I reported on Jim's passing and Dwayne's appointment. But one of the main things I wanted to get out is I just let the staff know how much the board appreciated what they've been doing with this COVID. Their shifts have been changed. They're not being able to overlap and communicate with other shifts. They're working from home. And they've just all stepped up and done it. There hasn't been complaints about this, and a lot of that's because of John's leadership. That was the main thing I wanted to put across at that meeting.
Yeah, that was a great comment. We really appreciated that, and I heard a lot from others after that meeting that they really appreciated hearing that from you.
Okay, which brings us to the Eldorado County Water Agency purveyor.
So there was an advisory, I had been asked to be part of an advisory group, and unfortunately I had an emergency and I couldn't participate in that. So did you participate as well, or just Shannon?
Just Shannon. Shannon participated in that, took some notes, and so we can maybe report on that next time. Financial.
And it's
planning.
not, you know, the information that I got prior to the meeting, it's not going to change necessarily any policy. Well, it's definitely not going to change any policy. It's just, I think it's more like ideas and.
Yeah, I definitely want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I appreciate Shannon doing that for me.
Okay, I think it's time for the GM report.
Okay, I've got a couple things here, starting with staffing update, temporary positions, and information about the full-time vacancies. And we've already had, some temporary positions coming forward for board approval. We had a couple today. We had a couple, I think, 2 meetings ago. But just as a recap, I was looking at 17 different requests about a couple months ago. And so far, we filled 6 of those, including today. And 2 of those 6 were 100% grant funded in water conservation. So I really only see about 2 more coming up out of those 17. And this is to help underground repair water that's really come up short. So I think maybe we'll see 2 more coming forward. These would be for seasonal workers to help underground repair this summer. And underground is essentially short 2 permanent positions right now. They have an unfilled position in water, and then also one of the sewer workers has been helping heavy maintenance almost full time for almost a year now, because heavy maintenance was down 2 full positions, and that's not a big department, so it's had a huge impact. Our other departments have had to pitch in and help out, which they've done a great job. But it's been really tough on that small department. And we also have a current vacancy on the pumps crew due to just a recent retirement 2 weeks ago. We are planning to fill that position next week. We have 4 in-house candidates interviewing on Wednesday. But once that's filled in-house, we're still going to have 4 vacancies overall. So we'll see who gets that position and then move forward on refilling some of those other remaining vacant positions. We'll a little concerned about recruitments these days, but we'll see what we get and report back on that. So plenty of staffing challenges these days and scheduling issues due to COVID precautions. We have those staggered shifts to keep our crews safer, and our workload has not decreased at all, and we've had more complexities these days. Even so, our crews are working well through this and sharing staff between departments. We're making it work, and we're doing the most important and the critical work first, but certainly some of our maintenance and asset management work is taking a back seat right now. So we want to get that back on track. It's okay for a while, but it'll catch up to us at some point. And I think, you heard this a little bit on Wednesday at ECC, but we're ready to get back to normal work schedules as soon as we can do that safely and responsibly. And certainly I'm looking forward to that later this summer if everything goes right.
Are you going to try to link that with what's going on at this county level?
In terms of the phase?
Yeah, in terms of the county's phases.
Well, we're at we're at phase 3 right now, and pretty much everything's open. So I don't think there's a super direct connection, but it's all related.
Yeah. I was just curious, just because what would trigger that, us to go back to normal? Would it be, the county's doing it, so we can do it?
Yeah, we have this 4-level risk level that we set internally. I think we'll look at how many cases we have in town, and what when people get tested, what's the positivity rate that we see in town. Right now it's 4%. So everybody that's gotten tested in town, only 4% are coming back positive. And according to Barton, I think they see that 8% is kind of a trigger. Like if it's heading from 4% towards 8%, it's getting too high, and we need to pull back. So I think that's a really important number. I think we'll take some guidance from the county and some guidance from Barton and also look internally at our own staff. You know, is our own staff healthy? Do we have anybody out on our own staff? Is there some departments that are really struggling, you know, currently that we need to get some people back, even if we're taking on a little bit more risk? So yeah, I would say it's kind of balancing all of those things, and the phase 3, whatever at the county is a piece of that.
Okay, yeah, I would just, from a personal point of view, I'd like to see it get back to normal here as quick as we can. Obviously, you know more about all the safety parts of it, but I'd like to see our door open here for our board meetings. I'd like to see our customer service door open.
The schools are struggling with what they're supposed to do. I just don't, you know, being a substitute teacher, I can tell you that if you got 10 middle school boys, you need 10 adults.
Yeah, you're not going to keep them apart.
They got to knock each other on the head, wrestle around.
Yeah. Well, the schools are just going to have to realize that the kids are in the lowest risk group.
It's just some of the older teachers, or perhaps like myself, that might be more at risk, that might be, you know, hesitant to come back. But I think, I'd say if we took a vote in our town, 60% of the town would still want to stay closed because they get checks, you know, they're already getting checks, whatever, from government or whatever. But a lot of the parents, especially those who have businesses, I think they're ready to go. And if we want our employees back, they got to figure out what to do with their kids if their kids aren't in school. Because there's just not enough childcare to cover it. So
Yeah, that's been a big piece
it's
of
a
it.
complex issue.
Yeah, and our office staff that can work at home and they have kids at home, that kind of solves that problem. But our field crews, you know, they can't work at home and they might have kids that aren't in school.
Right.
Have nowhere to go. So that's been something we've been juggling as well.
Sure. Yeah.
I do have an update on the customer service office. We have, we're planning to open those doors on July 13th. Right now, we're going through quite a bit of Tyler conversion. So there's a lot of activity up front. And we do have some plexiglass panels, but we want to add a few things, some more safety precautions between now and the 13th. Some signage out front for customers, maybe some of those stickers you put on the floor, and some hand cleaning stations. But so July 13th is our target right now to open up the front doors. But until then, I mean, Tim would have to say customer service has really been running smooth during COVID and meeting all customer needs that I've heard on the phone in the field, including all plan reviews and inspections. So thanks for making that happen, Tim.
Yeah, I haven't had any complaints. You've been somehow doing it remotely, you've been collecting payments remotely?
Reps are working remotely. We always have one rep in the office at all times. Maybe one supervisor or myself will be here at all times. But they work remotely. They can issue phones, they can take payments, they can do everything they need to do just like they were here.
Yeah, when you call the desk up here, it calls somebody's phone at home and they have their computer set up to do whatever.
Amazing world.
And for people who still have a desire to pay with cash or check, they're still utilizing the lockbox out front.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to come up to speed.
And we do have a doorbell up front. That might be something we can consider answering prior to the 13th, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I show up for committee meetings and I stand outside for 10 minutes till somebody unlocks the door. Or maybe well, it's always the day it's funny, it's always the day I forget my cell phone, so I can't even call. And it's like the gate's locked, so John's like, oh, we'll just climb over the wall.
Maybe we get one of those home monitor systems where you can get up my line. What are you doing here? Get out of here.
I've got a few more things, more on COVID-19 updates. Here at the district, we do remain healthy, and there's been no known COVID-19 sicknesses at all. We're still at risk level 3 because COVID-19 remains in our community, although there is a low amount of community spread. I mentioned that 4% positivity rate right now. So But it's out there, and it will likely be out there to some degree for a while. We were on a conference call, Shelley and I, with Bart on Tuesday, and they are, I would say, cautiously optimistic, and they support this phase 3 opening in town. And Bart really wants us to know and wants the community to know that they are fully open for all business, for all of your COVID and certainly non-COVID healthcare needs right now. And they actually have no one in the hospital that has COVID at this point, as far as they know. They have one possible case, but it hasn't been confirmed. So
No one in the hospital at all?
I've heard that too. I don't know if that was accurate the past week, but about a week or so ago, there was.
So they might have only 2 people.
That's what I was going to say. They're starting to get surgeries. They're starting to do orthopedic surgeries.
I know someone had a replacement.
I can't imagine us not having an increase with a huge increase of people. It just makes sense that we're going to have more cases because we're going to triple or quadruple our population. I think that the cases will reflect that. So hopefully, and Martin has, I think, been sending cases down to Renown when they get them. They don't.
Actually, they usually send them home.
They've been doing that too.
I talked about our 4% rate in town, and of course we're going to be getting a lot of visitors from Sacramento and the Bay Area, and their rates are pretty low there as well. But just to contrast that with Los Angeles and Southern California, and especially Imperial County, which is right on the border south of San Diego, their positivity rates are over 20%. So 1/5 of everybody that gets tested tests positive. So back to the district, I wanted to talk a little bit more about how we're operating a little differently now under risk level 3. But many of our office staff continue to work from home some or all of the time. And as Randy mentioned a little bit, starting last Thursday, many of our field staff are now working staggered shifts, but they're 12-hour shifts. They're working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 3 days in a row. And so that's like Team A. And then Team B comes in and they work 3 days, 3 12-hour shifts as well. So each week we're working 6 days a week, and that means every other Saturday and Sunday. So we're keeping these teams separate in case there's an outbreak on one team. It helps protect the other teams so we can keep doing our work. So just be aware that our field crews are working in the plant or in the field during these extended hours and days. As we talked about our town's reopening, and of course we're all hopeful for a swift economic bounce this summer, and of course hopeful that these COVID-19 rates will keep retracting. But even so, at the district, we are continuing to prepare for something else, and something worse, and something which may include the need for customer assistance programs, perhaps in the third quarter, starting in the third quarter of this year and beyond. So we continue to operate more frugally, and I think for at least the next 6 to 12 months, to help create that financial space to fund such programs if they're needed. And again, this has included the reduction of temporary seasonal employees, coupled with some delay in retiring permanent positions that have been vacated, and also reducing O&M and capital expenditures. These are delays and reductions for vehicle and equipment purchases, consulting work, capital improvement projects, building improvements, and business travel. And Paul and I will bring some numbers forward next time, I think. But Paul has worked with every department on this, and I want to thank Paul and all of our managers and supervisors for coming together to find these savings and delays. And one last thing, on the customer side, we mentioned this, bills are coming in, we'll take a look in early July at our delinquencies, and that'll provide us some direction moving forward in terms of staffing, purchases, projects, and assistance programs. Randy?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We do have a few staff reports here, so we're going to start out with the well owner survey. Ivo, are you on the phone?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, Good afternoon, board members, and to echo Chris, welcome back, Dwayne.
Thank you.
You should have received a draft copy of a notification letter from Marla. That letter was to help notify you that the district will be sending out a survey next week to private well owners. The survey is going to be used to gather information about well ownership, water usage, health condition, water quality, and well owner concerns. It's also used as a tool to inform private well owners of the district's role as a groundwater sustainability agency for our basin, and also to invite private well owners to participate in the management of our local groundwater resources. The survey is going to be conducted primarily as a direct mail campaign. We're going to be using follow-up emails and telephone calls to confirm receipt of the survey questionnaire, inform private well owners on the purpose and benefits of participating in the survey, and offering assistance in completing the survey either by phone, direct mail, or online through a dedicated web portal that we're setting up for the survey. For participation in the survey, the district's going to offer several items. There's going to be guidance on well maintenance, which we're going to be getting from the through the County Environmental Health Water Well Program. We're also offering well checks to help prevent contamination from entering into their wells. And we will also be offering testing through the district lab to check their water quality. So the survey is going to start up next week. It's going to kick off with the sending out of the direct mail packages, and you'll be hearing more about that. Kelly's going to be kicking off a media campaign to coincide with those mailers. We're going to be fielding responses from private well owners through the summer, and then we'll prepare a survey report at the end of by the end of the year. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. I'm sure you'll update us on how it all turned out. Civic Spark.
Yes, so good afternoon. Over the last year, Julie and I have been working with Meredith Anderson and Sam Rierman, who are Civic Sparks AmeriCorps Fellows. We contracted for their part-time work through the Sierra Nevada Alliance, and they've been working to compile a greenhouse gas inventory and developing an energy efficiency tracking tool, which we'll present today. The Civic Sparks AmeriCorps program is an incredibly cost-effective way for local governments to complete energy and water efficiency projects and work. Sam and Meredith's work with us has been so outstanding that the district decided to host our own Civic Sparks Fellow for next year in the engineering department to help with the asset management program. That cost would have been around $26,000 for an 11-month term, full-time 11-month term. But due to the economic impacts of COVID, we are now not hosting a member next year. But our hope is that once we know what the economic impact of COVID is long-term, and we have it in our budget, we will be able to utilize this resource in the future. It's a great bang for the buck to get work done. So with that, I'd like to pass the mic and PowerPoint presentation off to, I think Meredith is going to kick us off. They would be here in person, but with social distancing, they're going to do a short presentation for you guys on their findings virtually. Meredith, Sam, are you there?
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
We can hear you, Sam. Meredith, are you there too?
Yes, I am. Can you see my screen?
Brian, I'll give us a second.
She has to share her screen. Is she doing that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did that work?
Let me just see us. Let me see. Where is she?
Oh, there it was.
Oh,
yeah.
No, that's us. I've got it up on our site. I don't see that she's sharing anything yet.
When you went through it, Brian, I could see
That's
it.
not her screen. That's my screen.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Meredith, are you clicking share screen?
Yep, yeah, I clicked at the bottom, like the share your screen, and then on the presentation. Is it not going through?
Bring it up on our site if you want.
You can just do that. You can just change the stuff.
Okay. Well, Meredith, that can seem to work, but we do have your presentation up. And if you give us a holler, we can tab through it as we go. Does that work? Oh, wait a minute.
Yep, that works. Sorry about that.
Wait, no.
There it is. Yeah.
No, we're sharing it on our site.
Oh, we're sharing on our side. Okay. All right, so we're sharing
Oh,
here,
got it. Okay.
and you just let us know when we'll click through. Okay. Go for it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for having us today. We are really looking forward to presenting our findings regarding our greenhouse gas emissions inventories for the district, energy analyses, and different data tracking mechanisms. So my name is Meredith Anderson, and my colleague Sam Ruderman will also be presenting with me. So we are Civic Spark Fellows placed at the Sierra Nevada Alliance, like Shelley mentioned. So Civic Spark is an AmeriCorps program focused on building capacity for resilience in public agencies. And so with that, we get started. We can go to the next slide. Oh, can you go to the next slide? Thanks. All right, so for the greenhouse gas emissions inventories, their purpose is to take stock of emissions for all the district's operations. So these are from on-site emissions. So an example of that would be burning natural gas on-site, as well as those occurring off-site, so electricity usage or driving a vehicle. And this is important for cost-effective planning, and also looking to the future. This is also something that the state might require tracking. So the sectors we looked at were grid electricity, and you can see in this chart on the left that 88% of emissions in 2018 were from electricity. We did expect this though, because after learning more about district operations and Tahoe's unique situation, this does make sense due to all of the water being moved throughout and out of the basin. Other sectors that we looked at were natural gas, district fleet vehicles, solid waste generation, as well as natural gas leakage. So an average emissions over the 3 years that we looked at was about 9,500 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And while this number is significant, it is more important to know where exactly these emissions are coming from. So that's what you can see on the left there. And then this chart on the right will just show the average split from 2016 to 2018 was about an 80% to 20% sewer to water ratio. So our recommendations moving forward for the inventories would be just to focus on energy efficiency in sewer operations, electricity specifically, as well as re-inventorying every 1 to 3 years using ICLEI's ClearPath tool, which is what we used, the software we used, to track your progress. All right, next slide. All right, so for the energy analysis, we know that the breakdown is roughly 1/3 each for Luther Pass, the wastewater treatment plant, and all other operations. So knowing this, that it's important to target Luther Pass and the plant specifically for those energy efficiency measures. You can see that there's about an 85-15% split between electricity and natural gas, but costs are more like 95% between electricity and natural gas. So you can see that those electricity costs are higher. And based on those relative contributions, the district should be focusing on electricity and capital improvements. And this will ultimately show significant financial savings for the district. So speaking of financial savings, we can go to the next slide. So we looked at time of use rate through Liberty. The time of use rate is a rate structure that adjusts the rate you pay for electricity over the course of the day. So at times when both the cost of generating electricity and demand for electricity are low, so say in the middle of the night, the rate paid to use electricity is very low. And then at times when both the cost of generation and demand for electricity are high, so say an afternoon on a hot summer day, the rate of electricity is much higher. So we analyzed 1 month last summer at Tahoe Avenue from June 10th to July 10th. And this is one of the district's largest energy users and has been on the Liberty's large commercial time of use rate schedule. So as shown by this table, between the hours of 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., those peak hours, the district is paying a little over 8 cents per kilowatt hour. And then if this energy was to be used during the hours of 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., those off-peak hours, the district would pay 6.5 cents. So you can see in the chart on the right, electricity use is high during the day. And so when the district is using around 90,000 kilowatt hours per month at this one station, the savings is significant if pumping were to happen during those off-peak hours while drawing power from the grid at the time of the lowest usage. So this would save a lot of money at this site over the course of a year and has even more potential to save even more money at other district facilities. So again, if water were to be pumped at night and run down during the day, that would make this cost savings a possibility. So recommendations going forward for this would be to analyze interval electricity data to determine if switching to a time of use rate would be cost effective for meters at other facilities. I know the district is already taking advantage of this mandatory rate schedule at Luther Path, but taking it the same approach at Tahoe Avenue would ensure those cost savings. All right, so with that, I will pass it off to Sam.
Hey everyone, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Well, hello, my name is Sam Ruderman again. Just wanted to say thank you as well for giving us the opportunity to present today. So if you could switch to the next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to start with our field station comparison. Basically, the idea here was that we wanted to dig into some real hard data and see what we might be able to learn if we looked at 2 different stations. So after discussing with Shelly and Julie, we decided that it'd be best to look at 2 different and distinct field stations, specifically one that's older and one that's newer. So we decided on Tahoe, which is an older well, and Bayview, which is newer, that are in the same general area as you can see on the left-hand side there. So water production over the past few years has varied, but in 2018, production for these 2 wells starts to become more similar. You can see in 2019, they're roughly the same, and that has to do with in 2018, the switch from Bayview to Tahoe in order to try to prevent pulling the PCE plume towards Bayview. So like I said, in 2019, production is generally the same, but we want to see what this looks like in terms of energy consumption and costs. So next slide, please. As you can see here, first we dove into the energy consumption and cost data to get a better overall picture and understanding of each of these 2 sites. Energy consumption and costs have generally been increasing at Tahoe, you can see on the left-hand side. And on the right, at Bayview, electricity consumption and costs are going down. This information in this comparison is in some ways helpful by itself, but what's really important here is to look at these 3 charts, so water production on the last slide and then energy consumption and costs on this side, and try to think about what they tell us together. So we can take a look on the next slide. So basically, these charts normalize energy consumption and costs across water production. So first of all, it's important to note the differences between these 2 charts. On the left-hand side, we see energy efficiency. And in this case, we want higher values, basically showing us that more water is being pumped per unit of energy. And the chart on the right shows cost efficiency. So conversely, for this chart, we want to see lower numbers, basically less money per unit of energy. Looking at energy efficiency, it's quite easy to see that Bayview, which is the newer well, is pumping many more gallons per kilowatt hour consumed than Tahoe. It's about twice as energy efficient, actually a little bit more than that. And that means it's no surprise when we look on the right that Tahoe costs much more per gallon to pump. So it's actually more than 3 times more expensive on average than Bayview. So the immediate conclusion here is pretty easy. Bayview is a much more efficient in terms of energy and cost to operate, and it should be used more when possible. Through some more discussions with Julie, Shelly, and other staff, we also learned that Tahoe consumes a lot of energy just to start up, and the well is actually turned on and off relatively frequently, which creates a high demand charge. So another takeaway from this example is that there are some potential savings at El Tahoe. We know that it's expensive to start up, and once you have it running, you'll end up paying less per gallon to keep it going. So if you are going to start it up, it's better to start it up and leave it running. And if there's ever a circumstance when you might not need it in 1 month, try not to start it at all. We also know that replacing El Tahoe is in the 10-year plan, but basically what we know from this is the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can replace El Tahoe, the more money that you're going to save in energy and O&M over the next few years. So this comparison is just one example. The district should continue doing these analyses with field stations across operations and see if you can find any more potential savings between two stations. All right, next slide. So as you could see from that station comparison, and from the emissions and energy analyses, we've collected and combed through a lot of different data points. They're coming from a variety of different sources. We needed to know all about the equipment that was being used, hoping to have some sort of inventory with the different pieces of equipment, their ages, initial costs, power consumption. We also wanted to look at overall energy and emissions data. As Meredith mentioned, that comes from electricity, natural gas, gasoline, diesel, and vehicle miles traveled from fleets. And then we're looking more at an overall picture of operations data, so total yearly electricity consumption, electricity loads and demands, and the amount of water and wastewater being supplied and treated by the district. So ultimately, we realized that we needed all these different data pieces from all of these different areas to evaluate some key metrics. You can see metrics there at the bottom. Most importantly, we decided that we wanted to look at energy consumption per gallon of water or wastewater and the cost per gallon of water or wastewater. Similarly, we wanted to look at performance, which is how well a piece of equipment is actually performing compared to how well it's supposed to be performing. So I know this looks like a lot of different things, but frankly, that's because it is. And what we learned here is that a lot of this work is already being done, the data collection and organization. We're actually really impressed by the initiative that the district is already taking in terms of energy efficiency and tracking. But as I've alluded to, through this process, we found out that it's coming from all sorts of different people and different departments. And oftentimes this data is actually being tracked manually by hand, and it's quite a laborious and time-intensive process. So this led us to conclude that there's probably an opportunity here to improve performance and save money at the district through some sort of a restructuring and definition of a role of efficiency within the organization. So that brings me to our next slide. So our first main recommendation, kind of our overarching recommendation, is it would be really great to have one person who's aware of what every other person and every department is doing in regards to efficiency. This would include all different parts of projects such as the baseline well testing and the asset management system, and it would bring in, together with other various data tracking, it would be used to tweak and improve performance at the district's operations. So ultimately what that looks like is designating an energy efficiency champion at the district. They're really just going to help with what's already going on and ensure proper organization of all the data collection and efficiency projects that are taking place. So just some specifics, again, just recommend continuing to collect and organize all of this data that we've touched on. As Meredith mentioned, yes, the district should continue to do emissions inventories using ClearPath to make it simple. And ideally this would take place every year, but at least every 2 or 3 years to track progress and monitor trends over time. In terms of efficiency and cost savings, the focus point should definitely be on electricity. One example of this was the TOU analysis that Meredith went through. So these analyses should be completed and most likely implemented to utilize equipment during off-peak hours to take advantage of improved utility rates. One thing we haven't mentioned yet so far in our presentation, as part of our project with the district this year, we did want to develop an actual tracking system or software. We know that manually collecting a lot of this data was a relatively cumbersome and laborious process for staff at the district. But as you know, project scopes start out really big, and we didn't quite get there in terms of actually developing the software. So a priority should be made to integrate and implement after developing an automatic data tracking system. So this will take much less time and man hours to discover these savings opportunities. And again, all of these initiatives could be under the umbrella of this district's energy efficiency champion. It would just make things more organized and more efficient for everyone, which we know is of utmost importance and priority for the district. So with that, we just want to thank you for having us. We hope you enjoyed this and learned a little something about what we've been working on, and we're happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, that was interesting.
I might have one. How much time would an employee have to spend as the energy champion And would that salary be more than what we would save or less?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure if I can speak to the specifics of that, but one thing I can say is, as Shelley mentioned, there's a relatively high return on investment in terms of having somebody like us, in terms of our civics parks physicians, come in and do this work. We've been doing this work for the city of South Lake Tahoe local government as well, and we found some similar findings. And we've concluded that you really can find a lot of these savings as long as you're having somebody whose role is to look for them, and their responsibility is to find them. Essentially, the payback, it should pencil out. So I can't speak to the specifics, but I think one thing I'd mention too is that we weren't necessarily envisioning a new role, rather a restructuring and redefining of somebody's current position and trying to incorporate this type of responsibility into their current position.
Well, in your experience with organizations, it sounds like you have very good experience with the city and others. Is there kind of and given what you know about our organization now, do you have an idea of whether that would be full-time, 10 hours a week, an hour a week? And how would the data be collected? I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. As a board member, I'm just trying to see what the long-term financial efficiency is.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I won't say that I can speak necessarily to the specifics, and I agree it's not the best time necessarily to dive all the way in. That being said, I mentioned that we were really impressed by all of this work that's already being done. So a lot of it's already happening. It's just happening from different people and in different departments. And it was kind of our conclusion that maybe it could be centralized so that one person at least had oversight of it. So I don't think it necessarily, I think probably more than 1 hour a week, but not necessarily the bulk of anybody's major responsibilities over the course of the week. So it could be something that would be intermittent, and just making sure that folks are working on the things that they're supposed to be in terms of efficiency, and then taking some time every now and then to organize and coalesce all of that data and the initiatives that are already taking place.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
If I can add a little bit to that, Sam, you and Meredith and Shelley and I were talking the other day about this idea and these initiatives, and it became clear to me that a lot of the things that you're recommending are not brand new to the district. We're enhancing our data tracking at our stations as part of our asset management program. And so I think kind of what Sam and Meredith are recommending is that rather than just having the energy efficiency being kind of like a tag along with the asset management program, have it be like an actual an initiative on its own, so that we're getting more benefit out of this information that we're already collecting, just looking at it through a different lens.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking the synergy champion is, I'm not sure exactly who that was, Shelley or maybe our asset manager, but it's, Ryan's our asset manager, and Shelley and Julie. I mean, those are probably some of the key players. And I think also IT, and as Julie mentioned, we're already starting to roll out a lot more field devices. So instead of, driving to every station and recording the elements of the data on paper and then maybe transferring that on a monthly or annual basis, that's all done directly on a tablet, either on site or through our SCADA system.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say, first to really, thank Sam and Meredith for the work they've done for the district and the detailed analysis. And in all honesty, Sam and Meredith is some of the reasons why I'm so optimistic still for the future. And also want to thank Julie and Shelley for their leadership and for mentoring Sam and Meredith through this process. As you might expect, I'm very supportive of the Climate Champion. We know as grant processes continue into the future, they're going to be more complicated. Energy efficiency, climate change is being incorporated. We've discussed this in past board meetings. And so because this work is all being done, it feels like a shame that we're not taking that last step and coalescing around it. And as Dwayne said earlier in the meeting, taking advantage of it to be able to identify our benefits that we're achieving already. So I'm very supportive of that idea. And then also just taking that last step of completing the tracking document. So that way in staff reports and future analyses, whether we're changing out pumps, figuring these various different things, we can have all that information so we can make the best informed decision possible. And that data tracking and collection is really something we've been moving forward with for several years in the district, and that's what we've been utilizing to increase efficiency and lower costs. And so this is just another step in that direction. So I'm very supportive, and again, thank you for all involved.
Very good. I think all of us on the board are thinking along these same lines. I mean, for the past several years, energy efficiency has always entered into our decisions on pump replacement, well usage, that kind of stuff. So the more data, the better, more informed we are when we make decisions, the better. So.
And I'll ask some of my other questions, operations.
Okay.
A few just practical questions.
Okay, anything else, guys? Well, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thanks
very
so much.
We appreciate your time.
Okay, Shannon, are you out there?
I am out there. Can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear. Let's hear all about water loss regulations.
Yeah, this is a fairly brief update, just to give you a heads up that even though COVID is having its impact statewide, and we're having challenges with getting funding through the State Water Board, they have not delayed very much in moving forward with implementing the water conservation regulations, legislation that was passed a couple of years ago, nor have they backed off of working on the implementing water loss legislation that was passed a few years ago. And this is something that will continue to roll out in the next year, 2 years, and beyond. But I perceive this to be a real threat to us as an organization from a cost perspective as well as governance perspective. Where they're I think moving to is a trying to establish mechanisms to set limits on our water production and our water consumption within our community, regardless of the actual availability of water for us. The water loss and the water conservation efforts are driven by this, perception that everybody in California should be consuming every drop of water. And while I agree with that in principle, I think you need to look at that regionally and locally and see what the actual cost of doing those measures are, the impacts of them versus the value of that conserved water. And so we're continuing to give input to the state. Steve Caswell did a fantastic analysis of a water economic evaluation or an economic model of the water loss, a portion of the water loss effort, water loss control effort. And that's really valuable. That was helpful in weighing in and providing information and ammunition for Aqua to continue to fight that battle on our behalf and the other water suppliers across the state. We're continuing to engage in these issues, and even though to some extent it's happening underneath the radar since it's a regulatory issue now that it's out of the legislature, we're working on these things. We're engaging, Julie, Shelley, and I are also engaging on the water loss, water conservation regulations. There's a variety of studies that they're undergoing right now, looking at the how to implement the water conservation legislation. Particularly, they have flown our area to try and determine what the outdoor water use areas are, what our irrigable areas are in our properties within the district, and no surprise to us, and perfectly in alignment with the comments that we provided the legislature when they came up with this idea of using aerial photography. surprise, surprise, you can't see through the trees, and you can't see the ground, and so they are trying to figure out what they're going to do about that in areas like ours. And so we're watching that like a hawk and making sure that we're going to be conveying our concerns and hopefully establishing adequate water supplies for our district. Again, these are things I think that have real issues for us going forward and potential significant impacts to us. And so we're trying to get our issues on the table and lobby appropriately for sane, governance from Sacramento. So I just want to give you a heads up. That stuff has fallen, I think, generally off of our radar as far as a district with in the world of COVID-19 issues. Unfortunately, it hasn't fallen off of Sacramento's radar, and we're going to continue to see that stuff happen. We are working on it. We're engaging on it, and we'll continue to give you updates as issues continue to arise. And if we wouldn't be surprised down the road that we end up in a situation where we would need to call on our legislators, both state and federal, to help us weigh in on this. Water board, local government, to build some coalitions between us and other water agencies to ask for help in combating some of this. We're not there right now, but if that issue comes forward, certainly we're going to be engaging with you as the board to make sure that that you're up to speed with what we're doing. Thanks. And by the way, Dwayne, welcome back. It's good to see you up there.
Thank you. I have one question. Do you think it'd be appropriate for us to come up with a method that we suggest to the state versus wait for them to come up with something crazy, which they will?
Yeah, and we have engaged with their work group members, and we're part of those work groups. We have not come up with a methodology to offer them in these forested and timbered areas. Quite honestly, I don't think there's a mechanism other than ground truthing, physically ground truthing the projections that they have for irrigable areas on forested properties. I don't know that we have a solution for them other than that what they're proposing is not a great idea. What I expect is going to come out of this is that they will have a percentage, on a forested residential property, once you remove the impervious area for the driveways and the house and the house itself, that you will have 30% of that property, say, as irrigable area. And until we are able to until they have developed the models that information will feed into, we don't know how that number affects us. And so I'm hesitant to say, well, that number should be 30% or that number should be 50% until I see some of those models and how they actually impact us. So we're monitoring it, trying to see how it's going, engage with them in the conversations. They're sensitive to the issue. They've acknowledged that it's a significant issue. The consultants that are doing the remote sensing work and the aerial photography work recognize that this is a problem, but they have yet to come to the table with a solution other than we'll throw some sort of percentage at it. It's when we get to negotiating that percentage that I think we will want to. That's going to be the next big battle with both the water agencies as well as I'll say the environmental NGOs that are pushing this, and some of the Southern California agencies that are looking to save every potential drop of water because they don't have sources like we do. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's a good idea. It's definitely a tool that we have used in the past with the state board, and I don't have a great solution at this point to put forward other than coming up with some sort of percentage number for irrigable area on a residential lot in the forest.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else, any last minute staff attorney reports? Okay, you can. Oh, Gary, go ahead.
Randy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one small report as a follow-up to a question that you had at the end of the last board meeting, and that was on how the elections are going to be run in November.
Okay, good. You found some more information. Good.
Yeah, and so I've been working with Melanie on this, and we finally reached consensus with the El Dorado Elections Office, and the two seats that were regularly up in November, yours and Kelly's, those will be on one ballot, and it will have the two highest vote getters will win those seats. The other seat that was vacated by Jim Jones is now occupied by Dwayne Wallace. That will be a separate item, and the highest vote getter for that position will get that seat. But applicants, candidates for director position they have to run for either the 2 4-year terms or for the 1 2-year term. They cannot run for both.
Okay, so we've kind of gone away from that highest vote thing, but this is a unique situation that comes up once every 20 years, so I guess it's not horrible. But so basically, when Dwayne,
so mine would be a 2-year.
well, no, you could choose to run against Kelly and I if you want, or you can choose to run for the 2-year term you're in. See, and this is what we talked about at agenda review, Gary. You know, it could be possible that, you know, like for example, let's say all 8 of those people we interviewed run. They're probably going to run for the 4-year seats. And so nobody, I mean, what, and that's the only thing you guys can come up with, huh? Right?
Well, one other thing.
Why not just flip this to make it 3 4 years?
They're good, man.
Yeah, we talked about that, Dwayne. Let's say, for example, that there was 2 open seats for some reason. You know, I decided to quit, and now all of a sudden you've got 4. You know, they're still trying to maintain that 2-3 split. You know.
It's all governed by the Board of Elections. So,
Right.
So for this one election, we're not going to have the top vote getter, and we'll just have to see how it pans out. And if nobody you know wants to run for that 2-year seat, I don't know what we do.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, there's a question for you, Gary. If at the end of the filing period, if nobody is filed for that 2-year seat, what do we do?
Then the board will appoint.
Well,
you have a vacancy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an interesting.
Yeah. I was trying to avoid running at the same time as Mrs. Wallace. She runs 2 years.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, then you're gonna have to run against Kelly.
And if I were not to run for the 2-year seat, would that mean then extend the filing period for all the seats or just one of the seats to the later date? Work on that.
It would only, if you, for example, Dwayne, if you didn't run as the incumbent, it would only extend the filing date for the 2-year seat.
Okay.
For,
and then I could reapply for it. That'd be right. They just opened another can of worms.
Yeah,
I'm not trying
we kicked around all these different scenarios at the agenda review, and it just, to me, the most simplest thing, and the election board won't do it, is the appointment is for the remainder of that director's term period, regardless of when it happens. But they're not going to rewrite all that. The election board isn't going to redo that for us.
I have one comment. Remember, we opened it up with the highest vote getters, which I'm fine with. But when we went to have it consolidated elections, I think the district and the college board and the school district kind of get lost in the mix.
Yeah, I agree.
It hasn't been, I think, as distinct of a attention from the community on those seats for that.
I would have preferred staying in that cycle, but remember that the school board and the other, they already jumped ship, so we were gonna have to fund the whole election,
Yeah.
basically, so that's, or the majority of it, I should say.
Yeah. But I have noticed that people aren't, there's just too many, if you have candidates forums, you have to do 2 or 3 to separate everybody.
And you do get lost in the noise of a presidential election,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well.
And I just had one final thing, and like others have said, I wanted to congratulate Dwayne on his appointment to the board, and we look forward to working with him.
Well, I appreciate that, Jerry. It feels like family to me. I'm hoping to run again and stay.
You just gotta figure out which seat you're running for.
I'm more confused. I feel like I'm more confused than I was before, but it's kind of like on a higher level and about more important things. I gotta think this one.
Okay, we still gonna talk about JM a little bit, Gary?
Yeah, we're going to go to closed session.
Okay, so at this point, let's go out of open session into closed session. Come out of closed session and let's go into open session, and there's nothing to report, and the meeting's adjourned.
Have a good day, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, Gary.